to meet in person, shake your hand. My name is Tracy Phillips. I'm the current CEO of the Wainimi Chamber of Commerce, and we're honored to have you here this morning for our annual State of the Navy address. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge a few dignitaries that are with us here this morning. From the city of Port Wainimi, Mayor Doug Breeze, Mayor Pro Tem John Sharkey, Councilmember Sylvia Munoz-Schnapp, and Councilmember Tom Figg. We also have with us here this morning from Assemblywoman Jackie Irwin's office, Ms. Julia Justice. From County Supervisor Long's office, Ms. Lauren Bianchi-Clement. And welcome to Mr. Mike Morgan, Mayor of the City of Camarillo, for joining us this morning. We also have with us this morning from the Oxnard Harbor Commission, Vice President Arlene Frazier, Red Jacket, Ms. Marianne Rooney. And I'd also like to take an opportunity to introduce our Board of Directors, Mr. Wilbur, Mr. Jose Esparza, Ms. Dawn Hamilton, and a special welcome and introduction for our new liaison from MDDC, Captain Glenn Hubbard. Thank you for being here. And, yes, thank you. Oh, you know what? You've been awfully quiet this morning. Well, you know, I appreciate you speaking up, because then I will save myself from another faux pas. Yes, Mr. Juan Rawls from our Board of Directors is also here this morning. And you know what? I just haven't seen you in so long. This is the problem. Mr. Tony Valenti, the former mayor of the city of Port Wainimi. The girl who prides herself on getting it all right. Dawn. The four fingers. Again, thank you all for being here this morning. I'd like to take just a quick opportunity to remind you of a couple of upcoming events that we have before we get started with our program. March 11th, we have our anniversary dinner and community awards night, where we recognize our business person of the year, who is with us today, Ms. Bonnie Mercadani. Congratulations on that time. Our Citizen of the Year, we will also be recognizing Supervisor Capt along with the Chairman's Award this year. So we do hope, if you are not already registered, you are able to attend. And there is a special promotion for those attending today to receive the early bird price if you register with the coupon code green silver paper on your table. So please, or free, we would love to have you join us for that event. Our next breakfast will be March 16th. And we are working diligently to have Darren Kettle come out and speak to us about transportation issues. Just waiting for that final confirmation. I don't generally like to announce until I know for sure, but I am very I'm going to be real short in introducing our speaker this morning, Captain Janke from Naval Base Ventura County. I want to give him the most opportunity to interact with you. So I'm not even going to read what I highlighted, because you guys can pull this up on the website. This is all the stuff that he's forced to put on paper, so you can get to know him from a very two-dimensional point of view. I've had the pleasure of spending some time with him in social settings, and it's going to be much more fun to hear it straight from him. Captain Capt, thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. And I think Tracy did a great job of recognizing everybody in the room, and I don't want to forget anybody out, because to me, you're all important. And it might sound kind of corny, but if you're taking the time to be here to listen about what's going on at the base, then you are important to me. And one thing you should know is that my boss's boss, Admiral Dixon Smith, who sits in D.C., he puts out just a few simple tenets for every installation CO to do. And one of those things that is predominant on that list of things to do is establish and maintain relationships with your community. And so he realizes that importance to do that, because he knows we're a part of the community. We can't just put a fence around the base and say, hey, stay out. we're doing our thing in here. And we might have done that way in the past. Maybe even when Glenn and I were very young in the military, we might have done that, but we don't do that anymore. We know we're a part of the community. We cannot function without your help and your cooperation. And we know that a great majority of the folks that work on the base live out in the communities like Port Hueneme or the other cities that surround us here. So we know that that's important, and that's why myself and I have like Glenn attending these types of meetings and being here. And in fact, you'll probably hear about it, but I'm supposed to be at the Camarillo Chamber of Commerce this morning, but this just happened to fall at the same time. So I had to let them down a little bit, but it's okay because they got this brief earlier in the year. They asked me to do it for them too, and I'm happy to do it. I will move through here pretty quickly, but if there's something that I've used an abbreviation for, or I'm talking Navy speak, or I'm using jargon, which you're taught when you're briefing you shouldn't do, please pop a hand up in the air and let me know, and I'll explain it to you, and I will gladly take questions at the end of this as much time as we have to take this. So the other thing too is I am not going to do is I'm not going to go through my bio either. In a little known secret most people don't know is that you're supposed to fill up a page. So even though your career gets longer and longer, it's still in a page. I don't know how that works. I got one from my lieutenant commander who worked for me the other day. He's asking for my help, and I'm like, wow, you filled the page too. Yeah, everybody knows you got it. Okay, so just a quick overview, and for those of you that are part of RDP 21, that's a very supportive group. I gave this same brief there. I'll add a little bit of different flair, but some of the stuff may be repetitive there, and some of you may be very familiar, and I'm just going to let you know some of the quick facts about the base. We have about 80 tenants, and yes, we refer to the commands that live on the base as tenants because our main job is to support those tenants. We don't have a mission per se. We don't say like the E2 wing who their mission is to go out and support the aircraft carrier and provide over-the-horizon command and control. I wish I had a nice, long, war-fighting mission statement like that, but I don't. And it's simple. My mission is to support our tenants in whatever mission they want to achieve. And it's as simple as that. We have about 19,000 folks that are on the base, and I'll give you a little makeup of that. 1,600 facilities, and I mentioned that because, again, my boss's boss, Admiral Dixon, it is his directive that I visit every one of those buildings every year. Now, I'm not very good at math, but that is not possible. So, yes, but we do have to get around to those buildings, we have to see those, and I know those of you that are in city government, no matter what size of your city, I'm sure you have that span of control that makes it seem very daunting. And we'll talk about the age of those types of buildings as we go along. This is one of the only places where we have 3 warfare centers. They're great partners. NAVSEA, XWIC, and NAVAIR all have warfare centers here. And with that comes, we do have fleet operations that are going on here with primarily the Seabees on Port Hueneme and on Point Magoo, having the West Coast wing of the E2 Hawkeye, but we also have the RDT, Research, Development, Test, and Evaluation, which is a huge part of supporting our fleet with getting the new technology. So we have a pretty big local impact here, and about 1.9 we're doing an economic study to try to determine if that number is about right, but we think it is. And 66% of those 19,000 I talked about are non-uniform personnel. So government civilians, mostly, a good portion contractors also that work at various places. I have a tremendous amount of civilian employees. I have a staff of about 900 or so. Almost 2/3 of that are civilian employees. And the reason why that's good and important is they provide continuity and expertise and longevity. Us in the uniform, every 2 to 3 years, we're rotating in and out. Okay, so that knowledge goes with us, and we're relearning. As I joked with many of you today, I'm approaching my first year, so I'm just starting to get settled in and knowing everything and seeing everything. My civilian workforce, they've seen it, done it, and can provide that longevity. with those warfare centers, we've got engineers and laboratories that help us do educational partnerships within the community. I'll talk a little bit about stewards of environmental resources. We are huge stewards of environmental resources. And then there you can see a lot of pictures, a lot of different diverse things that are going on around the place. So why is Region Southwest, really? And that's the area that I'm talking about here. So my boss, everywhere you see a star, might be a little hard from the back, but he's responsible for all the bases, naval bases in California and also Fallon in Nevada. But one thing he's also responsible for in this, and I talk about him because Admiral Rich, because he shows this slide, so I steal it from him, is that we not only need the bases, the things that you can see right outside here, but we also need the things that you can't really see and touch and feel, which is the sea range and the airspace, sea space out there to conduct our tests and our operations. If you try to imagine any potential adversary the military may have, U.S. may have, I'm sure you can imagine that it would have an approach coming from the sea, and then eventually if that conflict escalated, we might have to project power on land or fly missions on land. Right here off the coast of California provides that type of environment where we can do those types of things. So a carrier strike group can be in that large area. The sea range that is only a fraction of that, I'm going to show you in the next slide, is 36,000 square miles. Okay? And if you don't think that it's important, it also diverts a lot of the traffic that comes into LAX every day, because they have to go around that airspace so that we can keep everyone that is not involved in our tests and our exercises safe. We need that airspace, and we also have a good portion of it on land, as you can see, and we can fire missiles that go in protected airspace, we can fly missions, we can do various things. So 2/3 of all the military's special use airspace is located here in the Southwest. Oh, okay. So here's a little more of a close-up of the sea range that is out there, that is run off of Magoo. And the most important thing I want you to gather from this slide is, I'll go back. So this area right in here, that's Magoo, right in there. This is one of the few places, if not the only place in the U.S. where the military airspace joins right up with the land. Why is that important? Okay, unmanned aerial vehicles, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit later. The FAA is still finding their way and their comfort with an unmanned aerial vehicle. And the core problem is that the FAA believes that every aircraft should have the ability to see and avoid. Okay? Well, if I don't have a human on board an aircraft, it's difficult to have an eyeball there to see and avoid. Now, we are working closely with them, and I'm talking about DoD as a whole, to try to get them to understand how we can not have a human on board and still be able to meet the objectives of seeing and avoiding other aircraft. But the best way to control that is, well, let's control the airspace, so the only things that are in there are the aircraft that we care about, the military aircraft, the unmanned aircraft. So by having that airspace, but right up against Point Magoo, we control the airspace all the way from off the runway all the way out to here. And this is the 36,000 square mile I'm talking about. Okay? And you can see right here, this is a close-up of Magoo. Here's the long runway, here's the short runway. All this pink area is the airspace zoomed in, and we control that airspace, so we can do that. So this is one of the few places in the military that we can control the airspace completely where we want to operate and stay away from civilian traffic and lower the significantly the danger that we have. And this is, like I said, one of the only places. Even in Pax River, where I was stationed before, they do have some airspace, but it's just a stovepipe in the middle. And in fact, when you're flying in, you'll see commercial airlines about a mile away from you flying right by, because you're right in the middle of the airways. We don't have it. That's why the airspace is so important. Just to give you a little idea here, when we consolidated NBVC, we put all things together and went away from CBC Point Winnie and NAS Point Magoo. We got the 3 locations, Port Winnie, where we're sitting right now, Point Magoo, the 2 main ones, San Nicolas Island, which used to belong to China Lake, now belongs to me. And we also, DOD owns San Miguel Island, even though we physically don't have anything really out there. The Park Service is, we're in the process, and I'll talk about that later, in the process of getting that park back opened up, we have a partnership out there, but DOD technically owns that. And then 400 Liggett is a Army guard base, but we own a compound down there, and that's where the Seabees go up and they do their field training exercises. So they have a great wide open space, just like, aviator here, I talk about we need the huge air and sea space. Seabees need area too, to go out there and play and be safe and have that contained. So they have that up at 400 Liggett. And then all these other little dots that you see around are really just small real estate holdings. Most of them are antennas, receivers, things that help. Because if you remember, the sea range is all in this area. So you can see the geometry that those receiver sites provide. So Point Magoo. And I'll talk about the couple bases here. And Skipper Vasquez, when I took over, he told me, he goes, you're going to see that Point Magoo and Winini are the tale of 2 cities. They're very different. They're very unique, different from each other. So Magoo, characterized as a lot more rural. There's not as much population on Magoo. It doesn't decrease in importance at all, but very much, when we talk about being environmental stewards, 2,100 acres of sea salt marsh and wetlands that we have. It's a little hard to see, but you can see the tidal area that comes in here. It fills most of this up, and this is looking the other direction right here. And we take pride in the number of protected species of sea lions and wildlife that is out there. We have a huge expansive beach here that all the surfers, including myself, would love to go out and use. But we protect that. We don't allow anybody in that area. We have a small family beach and surfer beach there. But characterization of Point Magoo is aviation centric, has a runway that can handle any aircraft in the DOD fleet. And we talked a great amount about the unmanned aerial system. And really, our largest tenant here is NavAir's NOC-WD, where they do all the weapons and their access to the sea drones, launching there, and also unfettered access to the sea range, line of sight, so to speak. Port Winini, home of the Seabees, as many former Seabees and current Seabees in the room know. If you are a Seabee, you're going to come through here. Run is a big part of that, with the officers coming through and also NCTC and the enlisted folks coming through and getting educated here, as well as our 3 active duty battalions that rotate to your home and 6 months away. And then also we have a great big contingent of reserve Seabees that come through. We'll talk about some initiatives later that our summer population here at Winnie does a huge accordion of growth and then back down when our reservists come through here to do their time. 19 miles of railway. This is a very important strategic port in the eyes of Transcom, but it isn't always activated. So that allows us to have a great partnership with the port of Winnie, where I'm sure everyone that's been on this or nearby traffic patterns have seen multiple new cars coming in and out. And we have a great agreement that we share, and that income from that agreement goes only to NBVC projects. We have 2 types of agreements. One of those agreements allows us a little more latitude, a little more money to spend the money. One of the projects we're doing is out on San Nicolas Island. We're consolidating a couple of dining facilities that are seen the better part of 40 to 50 years. And then we have another agreement that the money goes toward port-only projects, cleaning up, cleaning wharves, lighting projects, and we work together with the port. We also have a shared wharf over here, wharf number 3, that I am happy to let the Port Marine use whenever we're not using it. Because I understand they have business to do, and the more port space they can do and move the ships in and out, it's a great thing. Also, home of the bar, as you can see here, and also, does anybody have any idea who owns those boats?
Marines.
No, close. Army. That's right. See, I test people if they see my ring. This is the Army. They have 4 boats here. They're a great tenant. And I like to say with affection that our port is kind of the home of cats and dogs. So we have a NRL ship that is here. We have Army folks that are here. Right now we have the Park Service is using the wharf. Not WD and their target boats are here. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So even though we are not San Diego, we're not 32nd Street where you see destroyer, cruiser, amphib. We still have very much strategic importance here, and also a great relationship with San Nicolas Island. Little known fact, that we own the island. DOD owns the island, and we do a lot of operations out there. But what I will say, if anybody ever tells you owning an island is fun, they're wrong. Okay? I love the people that work out there. The strategic importance is great, but island life is hard. Everything about island life is hard. Logistics, fuel, air operations, everything. So right now, like I told you, we're getting ready. We're finishing one project, which was a barracks modernization project. That's just about done. And we're getting ready to look at putting up bids for the galley project that we're talking about out there. But just think, everything has to be run out there on a very low draft barge that takes about 24 hours to make its round trip, or flown out there on the C-130. So it's not easy. It's not easy. We got to keep moving. But some other things that are really interesting out there is that we make our own water. So we have our own reverse osmosis plant. When I talk about XWIC a little bit later on, it's great to have them here because I raise my hand to be the guinea pig anytime XWIC wants me to. So if they said, hey, we want to try out this new thing, I'm like, yep, let's try it out. So I'm kind of like the patient that'll do any treatment. It might get me healthy, it might get me better, all okay. So they developed that reverse osmosis plant to create our own water. We have 6 windmills out there that we're doing our last bit of battery development that we hope we can provide a power alternative. It won't be constant power because as everybody knows, the wind isn't flowing all the time. But we can turn our typical power plant, which is old, well I shouldn't say old, but there are newer locomotive engines that we have them in a house. But if I could have a time where I'm not running diesel engines, putting out diesel exhaust, and instead running the windmills, that'd be a great thing. And we're getting closer to that. Environmental stewards. So the first time I went out to the island, I thought the beach, I was flying in, I thought the beach was black. But then I looked closer and I'm like, that's moving. And it was covered with seals and everything. So that's coming up here soon. So there are things, operational things that we would like to do that we have to curtail during these meetings. Also, it's kind of hard to see there, but there's a box right there, and I know that most of the Channel Islands have different types of boxes that we're going to look at. And then there's our airfield you can see there. And again, if you know where San Nicolas Island is, you remember from the map, it provides great geometry for the range, and that's why it's there. We have about 100 folks that work out there on a daily basis, usually stay there no longer than about 10 days, rotating for the weekend, and then go back up. San Miguel Island, like I said, DOD owned, but not like San Nicolas Island where we have a huge amount of infrastructure and a small base and all the mission. We really don't have much at all in far as mission. So you may have remembered right before I took over last year, we had to shut down the park out there on San Miguel Island due to concerns. UXO is unexploded ordnance. So most of the remains that we did discover were not explosive. We weren't going to walk up to them and touch them and they were going to explode. But they were remnants of them, so we had to treat them like that. So since then, we've had explosive ordnance disposal survey about 1% of the island. I say, good job, Janke, 1% of the island. What is that? Well, if we were to do the entire island, they estimate it would take about 10 years. So what we've done is we've surveyed and cleared the parts of the island where the campground is, where the trails are, where the ranger station is. So right now we're working through the paperwork that the entire United States government requires the Park Service and DOT to sign off on and get completed so that we can reopen it. We're hoping, I just say coming soon because I hope it's this spring, so we can get that back open and we can open it up. At least you can see the picture a little bit better when I went out there. This was on my trip that I went out there, so it was good they didn't tell me beforehand, but we walked about a total of 8 miles. I think that about did me for the week. This little tiny line you can see here, that's the runway. So that was very interesting. And then when the weather rolled in there, it was also interesting. So we're growing, okay? I feel very confident, my personal opinion, that we have tremendous growth potential. Some of it we're seeing already, and some of it is coming soon in funding that's going to anchor NBVC here for a long time. I talked about ETV wing. So the East Coast is in transition right now. And if you didn't know, just naval aviation, every single platform in the Navy, air platform, is either new within the last couple of years, in the middle of transition, or in the middle of transition. The only platform that we haven't started yet is the variant of the E2 called the C2, which is the carrier onboard delivery. And they're getting ready to transition. So we're seeing a lot of new growth and new technology coming with aviation. What this means to us is every squadron is going to get an additional airplane. So typically a squadron is 4. Now they're going to get 5. So when you add an aircraft to a squadron, it adds associated personnel. We also have a hangar renovation project that's associated with this next to the current hangar. Coast Guard, they have already started renovation on their 2 facilities. So just so you know, the funny story about the Coast Guard, this is now, we call this a FOB, Forward Operating Base. It's going to be part of a squadron, about 40, maybe 50 people in total, 2 helicopters that'll be here at any one time. These guys were down at LAX, and they went to a LAX, it was a party, it was some kind of celebration, and they had a model out, a map, showing the growth and the expansion of LAX. They looked at the map, and they looked around trying to find their hangar, and it was not anywhere on there. So that's how they found out they were no longer welcome. So they are happy to come up here because we give them immediate access to the sea. I'll go back a couple of slides I showed you before. They love that too. Now, in the future, what we're hoping is that they have even more growth. They're working through Department of Homeland Defense to get a larger funded project where they would build a hangar out of what I call the Field of Dreams, which is the end of the runway out by the PCH, the old golf. Those of you who remember the old golf. And they would be next to Triton. So Triton has a lot of projects underway right now. The maintenance school is completed, so every enlisted personnel that is associated with Triton will come to Magoo to train how to do that. And they also have a hangar associated with that next to VR 55, which I'll show you in this slide. That's where they get their hands on to the airframe and they actually work on it. And in the future, coming around, I would say, roughly 2020, the new hangar would be their fleet hangar, and that would be out in that Field of Dreams too. So what I'm trying to do is get these 2 parties to work together because they also need a taxiway, tarmac, and all those things to put their aircraft in. If they can join forces to do that, that would be great. Fire Scout is already here and operating. You see it all the time. This is the larger version, the Charlie, which is about the size of a television traffic helicopter. The interesting part is you can see the spots where you would normally have humans like us sitting, and so now you can use that for something more important. Gas. This thing can fly for about 10 hours. And then we also have the smaller version I didn't put it on growth because it's already here. A smaller version, it's about this tall, probably from here to the wall long, and flies on board ship, and that's the Fire Scout Bravo. The reason why we're developing this larger version is greater endurance, weapons payloads, warfare center business. I'm always striving to capture this, and spoke with the RDP-21 folks last night. This is one of the biggest challenges because it's not quantifiable. Like, hey, another E-2D squadron's coming. Oh, okay, that's X number of people, and I can break down this many officers, this many enlisted, how many are limited housing. This is a bit different. They operate like a business, and anyone in here that operates in a business, you know you have, everyone is a potential customer, right? So you start off, you make 100 calls, maybe 10 callbacks, and one of those turns into an actual customer, right? That's the general rule of thumb that I've always heard. And with the warfare centers, they're doing the same thing because they're looking for developmental business, and it's always flexing the roads, and they're trying to capture that. And I talked to you before about the CV reserve battalions, that 3 of them have moved here, so that's adding a lot in the summertime when we see them. So looking back in 2015, you know, some great things. Here's our picture of our Sunday where we had about 80 to 90,000 folks visit the base for the air show. Overall, the 2 days, 180,000 of our posted friends came there. Change of command right here. But some great things we've got over the hump this year. The joint land use study, many of you in this room were a big part of that, and there's some great initiatives in there that are going to keep things moving as a partnership in the county. We had our, last July, we had our higher headquarters security assessment, and you probably saw just a couple of weeks ago, right in here, we did an active shooter drill. So if you, just as a side note, you shouldn't think that we do those drills in reaction. We do them in a regular drum. If we had the incident, false alarm down in San Diego, we didn't do the drills because of that. That was planned out a long time. So we do base level drills, and then you probably saw Thursday of last week. A little bit congested at the gate because we were doing a nationwide drill where we had to go with higher conditions of force protection condition. Always got to talk about the Cowboys and the Rams. I don't know if the Rams will be, that's Chris Long right there wearing a Navy hat that he's changing one of the sailors. I don't know if we'll be seeing the Rams flying out to Point of Duty because they're here now, so they've got their own place. The Defense Forum, that's Secretary Carter. We have most of those aircraft that fly in and out of the base. That's what we became one of the busiest airports in the region, and that. Right there is Mike Pereira from Fox Sports. He came and spoke at our Navy Ball. For those of you again, that was a great deal. We're going to try to get interesting personalities to come to our Navy Ball. So some of the challenges that we have. I couldn't stress this first one anymore. So my theme is, I am not concerned of what I can see. I'm concerned of what I can't see. Okay? So when we have awesome new platforms like Trent, or the E-2D, or we get new equipment for the CV so that they can warfight better, a new MRAP, new construction equipment. That is great, and those programs usually come with associated funding, which doesn't just include, when that program comes together, it just doesn't include, say, the airframe. It includes the Milltown project. But the problem is, when you build a new hangar, they are responsible for about 10 feet around that hangar. Okay, so I have to be concerned, along with CNIC, who's my big boss, on the installation committee. How do I get the water there? How do I get the power there? How do I get the internet there? Which is so important. How do I protect it? How do I do that? So we have a lot of very old utilities and infrastructure in the ground, and maybe in wires, that we are working through a phase plan to try to complete. But, and you will see, you may have been impacted by planned outages that we have throughout the business. That's one of the things. Force protection demands and composition, and what I mean by that is the trend with new systems seems to be, it needs to be more secure. It's a higher level of security. So I used to have a fence around the base. Now I need to have a fence around the airfield, inside the fence that's around the base. So the difficulty that we see is that with new platforms and new security measures come more and more requirements. But does that necessarily come with the funds? It goes back to it. I talked a little bit about the dining facilities and logistics are always a challenge. That one will stay up on my whiteboard as a thing to do all. Here on Portland, we have a couple of housing areas that was part of the, I would say, the initial long-time experiment of doing a public-private venture. That lease has run out, and now they are in government possession, so now we're converting them. Half of them about are going to be part of our NGIS, which is our, you remember the cube, that's our Navy Gateway Inns and Suites. So we're going to have a whole bunch of townhomes type style, which is great for the CB reservists that come in because it saves them money. They can put 2, 3, 4 sailors in one of those townhomes, and they have a kitchen, and they can save a lot of money instead of everyone of them having a room during the summer. And then the other half is going to be our unaccompanied sailor housing. So when we have young sailors that come into the Navy and they're, say, E1s or E3, they're so surprised they don't get paid a lot. And so it's cheaper to offer them a barracks type housing on the base if they're single. Then when they get older or they get married, young sailors make mistakes. And then they can move out in town. For loading, we're seeing a lot more plane from NSWC. So if you didn't know, we don't see ships that are going to come here to be permanently based on our port. That's San Diego, that's Norfolk, that's the other bigger bases. But NSWC, every new ship that comes through class usually comes through here, and the engineer, it's cheaper for them to come here. The engineers from NAVC go on board the ship, they work on their mission systems, they test it out, they send them out on the range, they can measure and do all the quantifying, and so they're having a lot more ships that are coming through. And I know that in our discussion with Port Marine, their business is booming too, and we want to keep that partnership going. We want to enable as much as we can. Like I talked about, that shared Corp 3. If I'm not using it, there's no reason that it should sit open. We should be able to share that, and we do that on a daily basis. And then point of view housing. Unfortunately, this little red area that you can see here blown up on the blue, there used to be a former gas mask training area back when the base first started, World War II era. And as I say, we're good environmental stewards. I don't think they were back in the 40s when they pop the mustard gas, they walk through it, and they throw their tanks from the ground. So we have since surveyed that area completely, like San Miguel 1%. We've done this completely, cleared everything out to our best of our ability, but as you probably know, there's really no more government housing anymore. We do public-private ventures where we lease the housing to a private partner, such as a company like Lincoln Housing, and then they run the housing, so the Navy can get out of the housing business, and DOD. So this was the last piece of land to negotiate to take those houses. Well, the private partners, lawyers, don't think it's worth it. So we're going to end up demolishing 102 homes in that area. And if everything in my house, it's one of the houses that will be home. So, what's that? It is. It is. Some of the really nice houses. Mine, and in fact, my headquarters building is right smack dab in the middle. So Teresa and I come to work every day at risk of gas mask training. That was in that paperwork. She didn't know what she was. Some more challenges ahead. So, as everyone's probably heard, there was, through the years, in the history of San Nicolas Island, there's been a lot of funerary objects and remains from Native Americans found on the island. We've taken great, before us, Navarre, when they owned the island, and now CNIC. This building down here is our curation facility. We've taken great pains to preserve and protect and document those items in the curation facility. And right now, the government, when I say the government, because government to government talks, we work with the possible associated tribes. We're in determinations of whose ancestors are they. And so we're working with many tribes, and we believe that, my personal opinion is it's probably going to be a combination of a couple of different tribes. And once we make that determination, and the tribes agree to that, the items are going to be moved out of this facility, documented, and we're going to use a China Lake facility because it's just easier to access. And the end goal is that when those tribes are satisfied with the inventory and what is what, then we will return them to a proper resting place on the island and then give them access in the future to see those things. We're always working on water and power conservation. I talked about the windmills out there. We're looking for zero-escape projects anywhere where, we have been greatly reduced in our ability to do landscaping, lawn mowing, all those types of things. So if I can have an area, say an approach to the gate where instead we can just put some rocks or we can put some AstroTurf, we would love to do that because then it lowers our costs, it lowers our maintenance. Right here is a brand new AstroTurf sweet ball pepper that will have greatly extended life and require zero water. Always, we have been long preparing along with Ventura County Emergency Services, El Nino preparations. It's kind of hard to see, but right here is 1998, and that's about a block away from my house where the streets were flooded. Point Magoo is very low. And if you ever drive on to Point Magoo and you go to any one of the gates, take a quick look before you get to the guard, you'll see a little short wall about 4 to 5 feet. We have the ability to block off those walls and give us another 4 to 5 feet of protection. The problem is, we have to evacuate everybody. So the tides, combination of the tides, Cayugas Creek, and increased rainfall, if we have multiple events in a day, we could see some flooding out of Point Magoo. And there's places in the back of Port Reed that could see some water too. So I'd love to see some rain. I want rain. Please spread it out. Do it on the day of lower tide. This is, when I talked about the project where I was talking to the Coastal Commission, this is one of our revetments. This is the central revetment. It's near our family beach and campground. That is a wave. You can see, pretty sunny day. There's a wave crashing over the top. The Mayor of Port Lee and my favorite topic, the fence line along Channel Island Boulevard. So we're working with them. We have a funded $750,000 project. It's kind of hard to see right here, but there's about 500 feet of fence that was run over by I'll say an experimental van on Christmas Day, and about 500 feet were taken out. So we've had 6 incidents of running into the fence in the last 6 months that cost us $350,000 on the pay. We're trying to work together with the city to come up with a mitigation. Looking forward, surf contest coming back. You can see where my priorities are. We did a surf contest, mud run, triathlon. We're going to do a lot of NWR things that I think have been great for community participation, great for sailor morale, government civilian morale that really kind of were gone in the past couple of years due to sequestration. And you say, how does surf contest get affected by sequestration? Well, when we have these bigger events that require greater security, and our MWR folks, morale, welfare, and recreation, they operate like a business. So when they charge money to stay at the beach hotel, charge money to stay at the campground, charge admission to come to a surf contest, they use that money to run their business. They also have to pay money for additional security. And during sequestration, we weren't allowed to have that additional security on these. So we're looking forward to this out there and hopefully get a good surf day. That's on August 14th. We also have some big celebrations coming up here that we can get more word out on those. I talked about, this is the hangar I was talking about before that's going to have the E2E expansion. That's going to be started soon. This is the hangar here right near our tower where the Coast Guard is going to be. So that's already started the renovation. I showed these 2 buildings here on the view. Those are really near the beach. This is part of the Warfare Center expansion. So a lot of the Joint Strike Fighter as you probably know, is a multinational project. So there's a lot of foreign partners that are working on the Joint Strike Fighter, and we're taking these buildings and doing software development in those buildings. And also, we may have a project upstairs in this building along the ocean, it's right here. And this is the Triton maintenance hangar that's deep in renovation right now. Energy conservation, I talked about that. And always strengthen partnerships. And I am remiss, and Kathy Long said to me when I showed this to her, she said, you know, you have a lot of relationships that are out in town, you should draw the slide that has all your relationships. And she's right. And I haven't gotten around to that. So one bullet does not do what it does. All right. Right there is Coach Willard from Camarillo getting a ride on number 7 on there. So there's him on the Camarillo team. I'm kind of impartial. I know that guy. Number 4. Yeah. You would think he would have my size here, but he said, no, Dad, I'm a skill player. In turn, what does that make me? I get it. So, I'm open for any of your questions. Yep.
You mentioned rebase out there, you all the minutes, they always go in. I hope that you solar along wind windows, because a lot of things do that.
Right, so one of the drawbacks for solar is in proximity to airfields. When you turn those mirror, now I'm trying to land, and I get the, and so on where our windmills are located, where we have the space, is close to the airfield. Now we are working on a partner project for Huron-Wenatchee. So if you're familiar in the back where the landfill is, it's kind of a low mound. That's a big area. We're trying to partner have a commercial partner where we put a solar farm in out there. We're not quite as big as places like China Lake or those that have great expanses. But again, you would think on Magoo, well, there's a lot of space on Magoo, but the problem with Magoo is the 2,100 acres of wetlands and the proximity to airfield. So our difficulty out on the island is that normally wind generation is contributing to a small percentage to a larger grid. And when that wind dies off, the grid just keeps running. But out on the island, we're either on wind or we're on power plant. So when that wind all of a sudden dies down, what is our buffer in the time it takes to turn those engines back on and get them on the line? So right now we're working with Exwick, and they're doing the battery technology that's going to give us that buffer of time. You look up, hey, the windmills have stopped. That's my simple idea of the technology, how it works. And then it goes to the battery, maintains the power load until we can get the engines up and running, and then we'll do the power. So we don't have the loss. It's really obviously a small grid that we have. So we're doing it one step at a time, and hopefully we can see those windows turn. Yes.
How far off the coast is the airspace?
I'll go back to the slide and I can give you.
Does it go out to Alaska?
Yes, it does. The San Nicolas Island, to give you an idea, that's about 60 miles. And then San Nicolas Island is right there. So almost about 200 miles. Yeah, I don't want to give you 36,000 mile an hour. Yeah, that's just to give you an idea there. And then just to give you also an idea, San Clemente is right here. And then the rest of the Channel Islands are just beside it. This is a channel where most of the ships operate.
Should take a decision then, and go slow speeds and not bumping, and go to good fields and cools are the way out here. I can see going out and slow down and use the good field. But if we have 3 scooters, you are going to have a tip. Every time you have
And even though the sea range is busy, we try to only close the areas when we need to close the areas. So we'll put out notice to mariners, notice to aviators, and also one of our tenants, PHCC, one of their main missions is range clearance. So before we do a missile test, they'll fly out there with their aircraft and, so to speak, hound the people that are not adhering to our notices and try to get them out of the area, or at least let them know that we're going to be firing missiles. There are times where they're in an area where we can let them go and they're going to be safe and clear. Or there's times that we have to hold up the test and not do it if they have not adhered to the area. Or the ship, it makes a wrong turn and it's doing it overnight. We show up in the morning. It's going to take a while for that ship to get clear. Any other questions? Oh, you're easy on me. Good. Yes. Excellent. Absolutely. Absolutely. So my best way to explain, and I'll try not to make Glenn cringe back, but the best way to explain actually is that we have warfare centers that deal with aircraft, weapons, ships, and submarines. Expert does everything else. They do a huge number of great things, and I implore you to have the X-Wing CO come here for you because he can do a much better justice than I can. But things like they have developed a rock crusher and a cement maker that can be transported by air. So I need a road in Afghanistan, and I don't have the capability there. How can I get that done? You can fly that in, roll it off, and it'll make its own cement make an airfield, make a road, do that type of stuff. They work on underwater cables. The Navy has thousands and thousands of miles of underwater cables that have maintenance and also have very complicated approaches coming on and off land and going into the sea. They work on that. Breakwaters, piers, portable electric generation. I was, a couple of years back, I was in Iraq, and walking across the base, a line of power generation that is producing. That power generation has to be brought in, it has to be maintained, it has to be taken out, moved around. They do those types of things. And one of the last things I'll mention, but it's huge, is they are responsible for maintaining all of the inventory of the CV's gear. Okay, so everything when you drive around the base you see here, and everything you can't see that is deployed and throughout the world, X-Wing is the one responsible for maintaining that inventory, which is a huge undertaking. And not only that, they work continuously on the development of new technology for the CVs. So it's a great thing. And I'm really, if the CO actually was here, he probably would be cringing because I'm only scratching the surface of all the things. They're great. And it stands for Expeditionary Warfare Center. So NAVFAC, Expeditionary Warfare Center. And you said NOCWD, so that's Naval Air Warfare Center, Weapons Division. So NAVAIR is the bigger command, there's a 3-star who sits in Pax River. And he has a Weapons Division who is the 1-star Admiral Corey. He sits in China Lake, and his command is divided between China Lake and Point Mugu. And then there's Aircraft Division, which is a 1-star who sits in Pax River and does those things. Any questions? All right. Thank you all for being here.